Coming up on this episode of Hacking Astrology.
Capitalism is classist, racist, and unsustainable. Do you like Leos because they are very happy and sociable and well-liked? Is that a product of your living with capitalism? Do you look at your most public presentation to this world astrologically as your career? Isn't that limiting in a capitalistic way? Let's talk about Capricorn Venus. I have a Capricorn Venus. In a capitalistic way, this would be money, right? That they put value to money. And so normally that's what the second house gets related to. But I would definitely say these people are definitely flirters. They're the type to maybe not settle down often. Hey, what's up? It's Sean, aka Watery Aquarius, back with another episode of Hacking Astrology. This episode is going to be on capitalism in astrology, talking about toxic capitalist concepts that are present in astrology and, just kind of decolonizing our way of looking at astrology in terms of materialism. So I'm super excited to talk about that. Before that, I wanted to announce to everybody that this Saturday, I'm going to be having a live class introducing you to the tips and tricks that expert astrologers keep secret from everybody on reading birth charts. So I'll have a live class this Saturday. Sign up if you're interested. The recording will be sent afterwards, so no need to actually attend if you don't want to, or if you're busy. You'll get the recording after, and seats are limited, so make sure to sign up. And I also got a gift from Birth Date Candles. So I got something called the Tarot Trio, and I haven't really looked at it actually, but I love it because it gives me like PR makeup vibes, like if I'm on a PR list or something. But this is what it looks like. It's called Tarot Trio, and we're gonna open it, see what's in here. It's a set of 3 candles that are designed to offer insight into your past, present, and future, and it uses tarot card charms within each candle, and it'll reflect a single card from the major arcana tarot deck. As the wax melts, you'll be able to use the special tweezers to extract the charm. Very interesting. So it comes with 3 candles. So this is the past candle. It's formulated to evoke nostalgia through top notes of bergamot, citron, amber, which deepens into mid notes of other nice smelling herbs. So very interesting, they put the actual herbs to represent the actual feeling. But it says, light up and enjoy your candles for a few hours. And then once at least half of the charm has revealed itself, it is time to extinguish the flame. And then you use these tweezers to pull out the charm. So very interesting. I wonder what tarot charm I'll get. Maybe I'll just let you guys know next week what I get. But yeah, that's really what's going on, and it gives like a little guide for each of the cards you get. Let's light the past candle and see if we get something maybe by the end of the podcast. Who knows? But anyway, so we'll just leave this right here and clean this stuff up. So very cool, and it matches my tablecloth because it's black, so that's kind of cool. Anyway, now it's time for Hack of the Week, and this is where I give you a certain tip or trick on astrology that has helped me hack the birth chart. And this week's hack is all about guessing someone's chart based on their rising sign. So, in the previous episodes, I gave you a bunch of tips on understanding, someone's chart based on the rising sign, understanding what signs are in what houses. But since we know the rising sign sets up the first house and the rest of the chart, and we know what sign is in what house, we can use other clues to guess someone's chart. So if someone tells you that they're an Aquarius rising, and that they are a Pisces sun, and they are a Capricorn moon, you could assume that they have and this would be in whole sign houses, their moon would be in the 12th house and their sun would be in the 2nd house, because Aquarius if you're an Aquarius rising, you have Aquarius in the 1st house, which is the 11th sign of the zodiac, and then the 12th sign of the zodiac is Pisces, so that would be in the 2nd house. And then in the 12th house, we'll have Capricorn, which is the sign before Aquarius, so we can know that their moon is there. So if anyone tells you their rising sign and their moon and their sun sign, you can know what house that sun and that moon is in. So yeah, that's one of the hacks I use to really crack the code of astrology for me and really understand like how to visualize people's charts in my head, which pretty much helped me become an astrology expert. But now we're going to move on to roast of the week. And so this is the segment of hacking astrology where we look at someone's placements and we roast them, but we also give healthy, constructive advice to kind of deal with that and just my perspective on certain placements. So the first person we have up is Sarams23_, and they are a Leo Mars and a Taurus Venus. So we talked about Leo Mars in a previous episode, but let's talk about Taurus Venus a little bit more. So being a Taurus Venus, Venus is the planet of your relationships, of your love, of your definition of beauty, aesthetics, and what you value in life. And so when we have Taurus in the Venus sign, Taurus is ruled by Venus. So Taurus is at home here with a Taurus Venus. And, we could look at Taurus as kind of like the money, financial side of Venus, while Libra is more of the beauty, aesthetic side of Venus. But Taurus is more of like the luxury, money, security, planning, careful type of energy when it comes to Venus. So we can say that Taurus Venus people are the type of people that they need to have a partner with money. They need to have a partner that can like produce things, right? So they might be a little bit materialistic in a way. They also might be the type of person who really won't budge for anybody. All right, let's get my cat off. They're really not the type to budge for anybody, but when they find a subject or a situation that deserves their trust and their dedication, that is when they put effort into it. So they're very picky, I would say. And also, I feel like they come across a lot of self-worth issues in relationships because, Taurus and Venus is all about value, and that's what the side of Venus is. It's like our value. It's the value of material possessions, of materialism, of finances, of what a relationship means to you, right? So Taurus Venus is, I would say, quite picky, maybe a little bit materialistic, and they don't trust often, but when they do, they trust really hard. If you combine that with a Leo Mars, it can get a little bit funny, right? So this is the type of person that really needs to be cared for and nurtured in a relationship. They want to be flirted with. They want to be celebrated. They want to be given luxurious gifts. They want to go on like vacations, staying at hotel rooms and taking pictures. I would say like this person may be a little bit like superficial in a way, but they are the diva. They are like a person who holds a lot of popularity or a lot of charm. Being a Taurus Venus, Venus ruling over aesthetics and beauty, they are probably a very beautiful person in general. And with the Leo Mars, they know how to kind of entertain people and make people like them pretty much. The next is Films Love Lore VQ, and they are a Capricorn Venus. So let's talk about Capricorn Venus. I have a Capricorn Venus. With the Capricorn Venus, we talked about Venus is about relationships, love, beauty, right? But Capricorn Venus people, struggle with relationships growing up when they're young. When you have a Capricorn placement, it's just a lot of responsibility and a lot of lessons to learn, a lot of karmic lessons as well, because Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, which is the planet of karma, of time, of rewards. So people who have Capricorn Venus usually experience some kind of delay or some kind of difficulty when it comes to finding love, right? So they have to learn a lot before they kind of mature in their sense of love and relationships, understanding what type of love they want and what type of relationship they actually want in their life. And when they do develop this later in life, their relationships are really good, and their relationships are very long lasting and trustworthy. Another thing is Venus rules over beauty and aesthetics. So I feel like Capricorn Venus people are the people who, weren't that good looking when they were growing up in school and that sort of stuff. They're like the ugly duckling. But now when they're older, they kind of transform and find their beauty. They find their understanding of aesthetics within themselves, and they find that confidence. So Capricorn Venus is kind of like wine, it gets better with time, it gets better with age, and having a Capricorn Venus as a young person can be quite difficult, right? But let's roast the Capricorn Venus real quickly. Capricorn Venus people don't know how to have fun. They don't know how to have like a fun, casual relationship. They're always thinking about like the long term. Capricorn Venus people, I would say, are also a little bit cheap. They might not spend their money on a lot of luxurious things, or they're the type of people to like save up money to spend on a large item all at once. But yeah, I would say, they're quite cheap. I would say also it might be hard just for a Capricorn Venus to just love, There's so many limitations and boundaries with a Capricorn Venus around love and expressing that and creating those close relationships, and they make it quite difficult. So next is Nerian Lorente, and this is Sag Moon in the 5th house. So the 5th house is all about creativity, self-expression, your inner child, children, art, flirting, romance, that sort of stuff. And with the moon in the 5th house, the moon is our emotional self. It's how we find security in this world. It's where we find a home in this world. And so with the moon in the 5th house, it's like we find home in ourselves almost. We find home in the self-expression of ourselves. We find home in tapping into our inner child. We find security through just being who we are, by having fun. I have 5th house placement, so that's why I'm saying we, but we want to learn who we are. We want to learn how to be super creative and super expressive, and to just kind of be who we are, and expressing our creativity is how we find security in this world. Like ourselves and our sense of self-expression is very important to how we feel okay in this world. With the moon in the 5th house though, in terms of a roast, these people could definitely like depend on their hookups in a way, because the 5th house is the house of casual affairs and hookups. So these people would definitely like depend on the people that they have casual affairs with for security, for that love, for that nurturing, for that caring, which can get kind of complicated, right? But what's interesting is that we have the Sag moon in the 5th house. So the Sag adds a bit of curiosity. It adds a bit of bravery. It adds a bit of travel, of internationalism. So the Sag moon in the 5th house would describe to me someone who likes to go to like different art shows that show like different cultures, different perspectives, different angles. They love to go to like philosophical art shows even, or just like interesting talks by people. I would say even like a Sag moon in the 5th house, they might, have babies abroad or internationally, or with someone who's not from their country. But the Sag moon in the 5th house, that's a fire moon in the 5th house. So it's like, it's this bravery, it's this courage that, in terms of understanding who they are, Sag really wants to understand what are the things they believe in and what does this mean to them, and expressing that through creativity as a big part of who we are, with the moon being our somatic body, the body that we feel, our emotional body. So with the Sag moon there in the 5th house, it's lots of curiosity, it's lots of exploration, and it's lots of creating new creative projects to figure out who we are. But I would definitely say these people are definitely flirters. They're the type to maybe not settle down often. They love casual affairs because that's where they find emotional security. So they're a little bit all over the place, but they are very fun, creative, entertaining people. So moving on to capitalism and materialism in astrology, there's this quote I want to kind of talk about. And the quote is that millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do. So it's basically saying that billionaires use astrology in order to amass their wealth. They are the type of people to be into astrology and to use astrology and look at transits and placements, and look at like charts of their business in order to find success. But it's interesting when you say this, because it's basically saying that the super rich elite people use astrology, and that's definitely not what we want to do, and that's not something that we want to create. I think the quote is definitely saying that astrology is very powerful and that a lot of people don't recognize the power of it, that we can use to change our lives and even manifest more wealth into our life. But this is almost using capitalism as a way to confirm that this is okay. It's saying that if you're really smart, if you want to make money, you better use astrology. If you don't want to be at the top, don't use astrology. That's basically what it's saying. So this is a very capitalist statement. Now, what I want to do is I kind of want to talk about capitalism a little bit before we kind of keep talking about it in terms of astrology. So here's some things that I picked up when I was talking to my raindrops, my audience. So I think one phrase that really rings true or just sums up a lot in terms of capitalism and why we're talking about it is that capitalism is classist, racist, and unsustainable. So capitalism confirms the discrimination of people based on their class, whether they're high class, low class, poor, middle class, and based on their race, whether they're black, white, Asian, etc. And as we know, capitalism wants to uphold the people who have hegemonic power as of now, which are cis white people of high class, and they use capitalism as a way to sustain their power through very sneaky ways of manipulating the world. And capitalism built the United States through even the slave trade and human trafficking that goes on today. And that is the epitome of classist, racist capitalism that invades this world that we live in. We know that taxes, they fund wars, they fund the police. And as time goes on, class disparity is increasing. The rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. And this is all because of capitalism, which pretty much objectifies human bodies for production, for profit. I want to read something from post-colonial astrology about capitalism, and it says, the history of astrology developed out of white supremacy and capitalism and patriarchy. The violent processes that construct modernity, which include racism, anti-blackness, gender violence, colonization, climate violence, and other forms of social violence. So Alice is basically saying that the modern world is anti-black. It is a colonial space, and it is a place full of gender violence due to capitalism. And there's a lot of people that talk about capitalism. I feel like some people talk about capitalism in a very like economics class type of way, which dilutes it because we're not looking at the human effects that capitalism has on the world. Capitalism sustains racism, classism. And a lot of people talk about capitalism as an economic system that people use in order to find wealth and to find power, right? And that's exactly what it's there for, right? But one thing that I read on my comments was that someone said, mate, I started with nothing and now I'm a millionaire. Capitalism has a lot of negatives, but it also gives you the freedom to change your life. So to me, this shows me someone who's very selfish, someone who really cares about their own life and their own freedom, rather than helping the people who don't have freedom. And with the freedom that we have the power to help liberate others. And by doing that, it is a very selfish act by just saying, yeah, capitalism's bad, people die, but I'm good, I'm rich. And that's exactly what capitalism wants us to do. It wants us to be selfish in terms of our wealth. One commenter named Pupguts said, being comfortable on a short leash and choke chain doesn't mean there aren't other more wonderful endeavors in the world. So that was a response to the comment about capitalism being good because it allows you to find personal power and personal wealth. But you're rich and wealthy and happy because of capitalism, of the money that's coming your way, that could probably end at any point in your life. Another thing that I was reading about in post-colonial astrology was that gold and light were objects of power in history. If you had gold in the past, you were rich, you were wealthy. If you had light in the past, you were powerful. You had some sort of class benefit. Now, what's interesting about this is that when I think about gold and light, the sun would rule gold and light, and it does. The sun rules gold, the sun rules light, obviously. Now, if we think about golden light in this society, golden light is seen as great because gold is a symbol of wealth and light is a symbol of happiness, of self-expression, of progression, of growth. But if I think about, and this is just me like going off the cuff, like if I think about Leos are ruled by the sun, and Leos are very well liked in this capitalistic society. Leos are popular, they're sociable, they're likable, they're creative, they're energetic, they're fun, they love to celebrate and party. So in this type of society, Leos are great. And it's interesting because if I think about Leos being connected to golden light as like a symbol of progression and growth, do we like Leos because they fit in our society and provide progression and growth to our society? Like, for example, if we lived in a different type of society where like transformation and dark knowing of the self and evolution and all these Scorpio traits, would Scorpio be well liked in this society? Would Aquarius be well liked in this society, being that they do stuff that is outside the norm, and usually Aquarius is excluded and ostracized? And that's interesting because Aquarius is the opposite of Leo. But anyway, do people like Leos because they are sociable and well liked? Do you like Leos because they are very happy and sociable and well liked? Is that a product of your living with capitalism? I don't know. It's just something to think about, like why we like certain signs, and is that due to maybe a certain way that we grew up, in a capitalist way, in a racist way, in a classist way. Like these are all like angles that we need to start looking at astrology in, and our perspectives on astrology that has been formed from whatever source it came from that could be toxic. So I hope that gives a good background on capitalism and, kind of my views on it and how I'm looking at it in terms of astrology and, just critiquing it. I don't support capitalism, obviously, but when we look at the 10th house of your birth chart in astrology, the 10th house rules over your legacy. I describe it as your legacy. A lot of people describe it as your career, right? Look at your 10th house for your career. Look at your 10th house to see what type of career you'll be working in. But once I asked my raindrops, my followers, to question this, like, do you look at your most public presentation to this world astrologically as your career? Isn't that limiting in a capitalistic way? Like you're seeing your only worth as your legacy, as a public authority figure, as your career and how you make money, right? So I really wanted to tell people, like, look at your 10th house as your legacy. It is who you are. It is what people will remember you as. It is the historical imprint that you leave on this world. This is professionally what people will know you for. The 10th house, your midheaven, is all about your public reputation, how you are as an authority figure, and that doesn't have to be necessarily a career. It can be just you being maybe a celebrity even, and being a person who has that big authority role and influence on the world. So I look at 10th house as legacy, and the way that I do this is I use the nuances of the signs, and I basically say, okay, this is what people are going to look at you professionally. This is what people are going to look at you as an authority figure. As an authority figure, you will embody these energies the most. For example, I have a Pisces midheaven in my Placidus chart. Because of this, people professionally will see me as very artistic, very creative, maybe working in photography, filmmaking, media, entertainment, TV, film, dancing, art, music. A lot of people say, oh, you're going to be a photographer, you're going to be a filmmaker, you're going to be an actor, you're going to be a celebrity. But it's like more so, people are going to know you for this Pisces energy. People are going to know me for this creative, spiritual, emotional energy that I give off professionally in some sort of way. It definitely marks a creative life, a creative legacy. One of my raindrops, Neptunian Serenity, said, I love using the word vocation. There are many ways to embody your 10th house without being in a traditional job with a specific title. So your vocation, and that is your calling, right? And, Neptunian Serenity is saying that your 10th house is your vocation. It is what the world calls you to do. It is really the duty that you have to this world. It is the responsibility that you have to this world. And as we're talking about this, I think it's really important to talk about the Capricorn stereotype of being like super hardworking and loving work and loving money. And, this can be limiting for Capricorns as well in understanding who they are, because if we look at Capricorns as just hardworking and they just like work and jobs, that's not leaving a lot of space for people to really understand the emotional side of Capricorn, the personal side of Capricorn. So I urge you, when you think about Capricorn, when you think about the 10th house, it can be about work and hard work, but it's more so about being an authority figure and being a leader that provides wisdom and responsibility to the areas that they encounter. Capricorns, they do deal with like growing up, a sense of responsibility that they had to take on as a young child, and that does like affect them throughout life. But it doesn't have to be resulting in work. Not everyone works even. Not everyone likes to work that are Capricorn. So we have to think about that as well when we talk about Capricorns. A really awesome reply that I got from someone, one of my raindrops, their name is Pretty Little Psycho Zero, and they said, may I add this? Also, because the Cancer Capricorn axis represents the lineage legacy line. So the 4th house would be the lineage, where you come from, and then the 10th house is your legacy and kind of your role in this world and how people know you, what people know you for. The 4th house is our heritage and our roots, where we come from, our connection to source or mother, and also the connection to our deeper, more hidden self. The 10th house is what we create and leave in this world, something that stands the test of time and limitations of reality, Saturn's realm. It outlives your own self, something that you leave for the next generations. So the 4th house is representing something we already embody, and the 10th house representing something we aspire to become in the future. So that's when we look into our charts. For example, our 4th house is the family we grew up in, and the 10th house is the family we create with our partner. So I thought that was a really interesting angle on the 10th house, and then relating it to the 4th house, which is the opposite house of the 10th house, and thinking about Cancer Capricorn and what that means. So it's important to look at the 10th house as your legacy and kind of your historical imprint on this world. And in terms of decolonizing, like how we look at signs and in capitalistic ways, we see Aries as people who are independent leaders, impatient, they'll rush to get everything done, they're super goal determined. And in a capitalistic way, people might see Aries as people who have it all together, that can get whatever they want. But the Aries goal doesn't have to be money and having like a high social status. It can be defending people, protecting people, fighting for other people. Aries is ruled by Mars, which is the planet of war and battles. And looking at the Taurus midheaven, this would show someone perhaps, Taurus is always related to finances and money and financial security. So we can say that, Tauruses are greedy, Tauruses love money, they're selfish. But the Taurus goal is a long-term goal. They're trying to really just establish security in their life, establish stability, and establish a foundation. And they can do that in different ways outside of finances and money. They can do it by having a good sense of self-worth and helping people understand their own self-worth. So we can look at all the signs and really like pick out little things here and there. But what I really want to jump into is the sixth house and this concept of productivity. So the sixth house is the house of the workplace, they say. It is the house of dedication, of responsibility, of health, wellness, consistency. So the sixth house and Virgo placements in general, they get a certain reputation for being super productive, for wanting to have everything perfect, to have everything in line. And so the sixth house is an interesting house to look at because we could look at it as the workplace, as the place in which you do your job, right? It can show relationships with your coworkers, etc. And a lot of people use the sixth house primarily to talk about the workplace. But let's say that you're not spending every day in the workplace. Let's say you're not spending every day doing a job, Let's say you spend every day helping people, volunteering. Maybe you spend every day, maybe you don't work and you just spend every day kind of enjoying life and traveling, or you have a certain duty to tend to every day in your family, etc. So sometimes your daily life is not the workplace. So it's important to look at the sixth house as kind of the house of your daily life, but that doesn't have to be the workplace. It can just be how you spend your days, how you use your energy every day. And then even looking at the second house, the second house is about materialism, financial security. It's about money. So when we look at the second house and materialism, we can say if you have a placement in the second house, you might be greedy. You might be the type of person that doesn't want to share, that's focused on materialism and finances, But when you do have second house placements, it can talk about a connection to your foundation in this world. Like, what are the values that really keep you grounded? What do you give value to? Do you give value to money? Do you give value to wealth? Do you give value to shelter? What do you give value to? And so that's what the second house is asking us to. And in a capitalistic way, this would be money, right? That they put value to money. And so normally that's what the second house gets related to: financial security, money, and materialism and material possessions. So it's important to look at the second house as well as the house of values, of our self-worth. Like, how do we put value to things? This can be money, but whatever allows us to feel secure and establish a foundation in this world, that is what the second house is about primarily, outside of money. So yeah, in terms of capitalism in astrology, there's so much we could talk about. The 10th house, the 6th house, the second house, those are primarily the houses of money, talking about Capricorn. And I just think that it's really important to decolonize the way that we look at astrology in an anti-capitalist way, so we could open up our view and really find liberation and find choice and find freedom in our birth chart outside of capitalistic realms, which really reduces us to a product, which reduces us to a certain thing that makes capitalism work. There's definitely so much more we could talk about with like money and capitalism and astrology, but I think this is definitely a good intro into it to like get you guys to start thinking about it. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Thanks for watching the Hacking Astrology podcast. Don't forget to rate, review, share, and tell people about this podcast. That's really important. And if you're not following me on my socials, follow me at Watery Aquarius, and I will see you next week. Bye.